Hello and welcome to How to Personalize HubSpot Chatflows. I'm your host, Josh Hines, and founder and CEO of Contineofy. We are currently going live across a few different platforms, so we're going to give people a moment to join. While we wait, let me make a quick introduction to the brand Contineofy, which was recently just launched by myself after spending 15 years in SaaS and corporate tech. The brand focuses on SaaS brands utilizing HubSpot in their integrated marketplace. We offer a fractional subscription model that gives you access to unlimited marketing and revenue operations with no scopes, no quotes, and no billable hours. Simply submit and prioritize requests and then consider them done. We'll meet once a week to collaborate with your point of contact and share updates on requests and get feedback for upcoming work or answers if there are bottlenecks. So regardless if you're needing someone to simply segment and send out promotional emails, to even building out a channel partner program, automating your customer lifecycle marketing, or measuring attribution to understand what's actually working, it's all one simple subscription away. So now that we got that out of the way, let's jump into it. First and foremost, housekeeping. This video is pre-recorded so that I can be live in the comments. Any questions you want to ask while the video is running, share them. The more the merrier. Some of the questions I might even broadcast live or could be used to create the next webinar. Secondly, this video will be available on demand on the Contineofy website and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so that we can get access to all the bells and whistles there and make a better sharing experience for you. So that's housekeeping. Let's jump into today's topic, chat flows. So who is this training for? Well, anyone using HubSpot and looking to increase their website chat engagements, those wanting to stop seeing an empty HubSpot inbox and start hearing chat flow notifications instead, stay tuned. With that in mind, my promise to you is that by the end of this video, you'll be ready to tackle your HubSpot chat flows and increase conversion rates on your website. To ensure I keep my promise, in return, I only ask that you close all your other tabs, put your phones on silent, and open up your HubSpot instance, because what I share right now is going to be able to be applied in real time. So thinking through the agenda of today, there are 4 main topics of discussion, including common chat mistakes that are causing you to see low engagement on your website, how to build better chat flows, and even best practices on how I've created chat flows for SaaS and tech brands I've worked with. So before we jump into the meat and potatoes, I first want to say hey and share a little bit about who I am. I've spent the last 15 years working with numerous SaaS brands at different stages from seed funded to 50 million ARR. And on the other end, I've worked with corporate America working for brands like Red Hat and IBM, where I managed increasing landing page conversion rates and executing global marketing campaigns. With that in mind, I've seen things at different extremes and understand how processes and structure allows you to scale to incredible heights. A quick fun fact, I get this question a lot, but yes, I actually do like operations and building systems. As an INTJ, it's kind of my MO. However, I wasn't always this way. There was a time when I spent way too much time doing marketing and revenue operations manually. I didn't always understand how one thing impacted another, especially in SaaS where a customer moves from one department to another, but each department builds upon the previous one. And more importantly, I didn't understand how to read the data to understand if what I was doing was actually working. I just did a lot of things and hoped things clicked. But because I learned a lot over the last 15 years, I launched Contineofy, where I share my passion for helping SaaS and tech brands stop throwing things against a wall to see what sticks and instead use data to drive their marketing and revenue strategies so that they can drastically reduce their days to close, cost of acquiring customers, and increase their customers' lifetime value without the same pain, struggle, and hassles I went through in my early days. So enough about me and Contineofy. You're not here to hear me talk about myself. You're here to learn about HubSpot Chatflows. So let's move on to the common mistakes I see when working with brands, 4 mistakes in particular. The first mistake I see a lot of brands do is creating a generic welcome message. Yes, this gives you chat on your website, but it's so open-ended, it doesn't prompt your potential buyers to start a conversation. When I see this chat opening, it honestly reminds me of when you see someone in the hall or store that you know and they ask, "How are you today?" And you don't really know if you want to answer the question or not because it's not really a good conversation starter. And most people just respond, I'm good, or just ignore you altogether. How boring. The next mistake I see a lot is slow response times. If you have live chat on your website, you need to ensure people are responding in a timely manner. According to Zendesk, people's expectations when engaging with chat is that they get a response in less than a minute. If your team doesn't have the bandwidth to manage this properly, you're better off leaving chat off your website. The third mistake I see, and this builds off of response times, is poor responses. If you have chat managers who aren't really familiar with your brand and offerings, their responses in the chat aren't going to be beneficial to potential buyers. You should be sharing not only how to use the chat inbox, but also your platform capabilities so that your chat managers can create a great chat experience. The last chat mistake, and this builds off of poor responses, is because your team isn't trained on how to answer questions properly, they instead use chat as a glorified meeting booker to connect people looking for live answers with a salesperson, which isn't what they want. They want answers to their questions now, not a meeting with sales later. Again, going back to responses, what we need to remember is that 70% of the buyer's journey happens before someone even speaks to sales. So think of your chat as an education and value channel, not a lead generation magnet, unless the contact actually wants to start a conversation about numbers and specific objections. Obviously, this isn't a business development problem. So I don't want you to think I'm one of those people who can only talk about problems and not offer solutions. So let's shift the conversation and talk about the things you should be doing. The most obvious thing to do first is customize your chat interface. This might seem simple, but the defaults are, well, the defaults. The first thing you want to do is brand your chat interface. I tend to want to make this a complement color versus your core brand colors so that the chat widget stands out on your website. One quick way to recap the chat conversation and give people access to any of the questions you answered is by sending a chat transcript to them afterward. On the availability tab, this is where you set your team's availability. I tend to set this to based on team availability versus operating hours, so you don't need to worry about numerous people going on vacation or holidays and now all of a sudden no one is there managing the chat, but it's saying someone is available. In this tab, you can also share your typical response times. Key thing here is don't lie. If you say you're going to respond in a few minutes, you best meet that expectation or people are going to get upset. Lastly, your away message can go one of two ways. You can either hide the chat if no one is available, or you can show a default message. I personally share a message where I say we're away, but if they leave their email address, we'll reach out to them when we get back in the office. So you have a pretty chat widget. Let's talk chat flows. There are a number of chat flows you can build. For this webinar, we're going to focus on building live chats, qualifying chat bots, meeting booker bots, and customer ticket bots. When building out chat flows, there are 4 parts to every chat flow, including build, target, display, and options. Although this is the order in the menu, I tend to build these in reverse, so let's start with the options tab. In the options tab, this is where you can specify all the legalities. There's 3 options for consent, and then the ability to set anyone who engages with this chat flow as a marketing contact in your CRM. The first consent is cookies. By turning this on, it allows someone to start a chat, leave your website, and then come back, and the chat you are having will still be available. If you don't turn this on, if someone leaves your website, the chat will start all over when they return. The next consent is processing data and consent to communicate, which serve as permissions for GDRP and storing the contact in your CRM. Depending on where you live, these 2 consents could be necessary to ensure your brand stays out of legal trouble. Speak with your lawyer to determine if you need to toggle these consent banners on in your country or state. Lastly, setting contact engagements is marketing contacts. HubSpot charges platform users by contacts in the CRM. With this in mind, you need to ask yourself if you want to automatically add a contact, who engages with chat as a marketing contact so that you can send them emails or other automations in your CRM, or if you want your chat managers to have to manually change people who actually meet buyer intent versus people who are just kicking tires. Now that we've highlighted the option tab, let's move on to display. Your chat display settings are another easy way that increases engagements. By default, the chat shows a little robot as the profile picture, which doesn't really say, hey, there's a real person here to chat with. When choosing a chat avatar, I typically choose the contact owner in the CRM, which means you'll need to work with your team to upload headshots in the CRM. And then the alternative, if the contact owner isn't online, would be a specified team, which are those you've trained to manage the chat inbox. You can set this team up in your settings under users and teams. If you don't want your sales team in chat, instead of choosing contact owner, just choose specific users and teams and choose your chat manager's team. When it comes to chat display, for desktop, I tend to pop open the message as a prompt so that they can see the leading welcome message. But on mobile, I only show the chat launcher as to not disrupt their view. Now that we've got consent and display out of the way, let's move on to the real ways to increase your chat engagements, better targeting and welcome messaging. So this is where the real personalization begins. Creating chat flows for specific website targets allows you to personalize the welcome message you're sharing, which gets people to actually want to engage with your chat. When thinking through targeting, there are a number of ways, including targeting your chat to certain URLs or URL structure. For instance, have a booking bot on the pricing page or a what are you looking to learn for on your blog are a great way to ensure that the chat you are creating is specific to pages on your website. Another option is queries, which is good if you're applying UTM variables or other queries to identify personas in the link that you share on external channels and want to tailor your chat flows to whoever clicks those links. For known and unknown, if someone is visiting for the first time, you can have a more open-ended conversation versus someone who is returning. You can base that chat on which stage they are in the buyer's journey. Creating chats based on segmented lists is good for ABM or contacts who have churned but then are returning to the website. There are also additional segments like location if you want to show a chat widget for specific regions if you split your markets up that way. Additionally, there's last time visited and session counts, which are good for people that have shown high engagement, where you can try to be a little more aggressive with them versus casual website visitors. Referral source can also be a fun one. Knowing if someone came from LinkedIn versus TikTok, if you wanted to change up the conversation a bit based on the language they were probably seeing on that platform, it's a tad bit overkill, but depending on your platform, could be a great way to start a conversation. When thinking about how many targeted chat flows you should create, I personally have 54 different chat flows on the website. To ensure that the welcome message prompt matches the page that you're currently visiting or the stage of the buyer's journey that you're in, so it's enticing to start a conversation to learn more. At which point my main outcome is having a conversation and not necessarily trying to book a meeting. If things get to that point or the contact asks if we can talk further, it's there and ready, but that's not the main focus. It's more about sharing what I can offer and building trust and validation versus a hard sale. So now that we've talked through building targeted chat flows, let's now think through the build tab on each of the chat flow options, including live chat, qualifying bot, meeting bot, and ticket bot. First up, live chat. The live chat build is fairly straightforward, and because you have designated specific chat flows to specific targets, these welcome messages should be specific as well. One thing to remind yourself is that these welcome messages are limited to 250 characters, so you have to be smart about what you say. Ideally, you should reference the page you're targeting and then prompt a leading question to get the contact talking. When it comes to assignments, if there are certain things that certain teammates understand better, you can assign these chat flows to them. But if it's an open-ended chat flow, you could assign the live chat to your chat manager's team. For instance, if your sales team is managing this, you could also assign certain chat flows to salespeople who close on certain aspects better than others. For instance, if your website has good product marketing, you're going to be sharing a lot of functions and capabilities on your platform. If one of your sales or development reps understands a capability better than others, you could assign those target chat flows to them versus the group at large. The last tab on the build is email capture. This is something I usually always turn on because it's an easy way to start building your email list. From the contact's perspective, there are two ways to go about this. You could ask for their email address in case something happens with the chat and you lose connection. And to them, it just seems like they're providing an email in case something happens with the chat. You can also, as this screenshot alludes, ask for an email address if your response times are too slow and they just want you to reach out to them via email when you're available, at which your chat managers can follow up with an email to address their questions. Now let's move on to bots. The qualifying chatbot is great for vetting contacts before passing them to your sales team. I personally use a qualifying bot when someone books a strategy session to capture additional details specific to the brand that I can't pull through enrichment using third-party tools. If you're an enterprise service provider, you could also use a qualifying bot to filter out SMB and mid-market brands from reaching your sales team. You can even use a qualifying bot when onboarding, prompting the contact when they first log into the platform to understand what their expectations and goals are for using your platform so that you can forward these answers to your CSM and they know how to manage the first meeting and get those questions out of the way. By default, with the qualifying bot, you have to ask them for their name and email address unless you have the HubSpot code on your platform and you're pushing that identification on the back end in which these questions will be skipped. As for qualifying questions, you can reference any field in your CRM, both the default fields made by HubSpot and any custom fields you've added that are specific to your platform's use case. Next up, meeting booker bots. Like the qualifying bot, you have to request their name and email address to complete this meeting booker bot. If the contact is already cookied, those two steps will be skipped. Side note, when using meeting booker bots, the meeting you choose to book with needs to be the standard meeting schedule that only includes first name, last name, and email address. Otherwise, you are going to get an alert saying you're requesting custom fields that the bot can't handle and instead will redirect the contact to a meeting page versus collecting the info within the chat interface. Now, I know I shared in the mistakes that you shouldn't be using chat as a glorified meeting booker. But there are some cases where it makes sense to use a book meeting bot for your sales team, including your demo request page, your pricing page, your contact us, and once a contact is cookied on your website, if they enter the MQL or SQL buyer stage, you could prompt them with the meeting booker bot because at that point, they know who you are and what you offer. So if they are visiting the website again, there is probably a high intent that they are looking to buy. So sharing a meeting booker bot isn't a bad customer experience. The last chat build is specific for your customer base, so let's talk ticket bots. With the ticket bot, the only two required fields is email address and the question they have. The email address will be skipped if already known. What's great about ticket bots is they are a great way for your customer base to ask a question and know they're going to get it addressed in a timely manner. These submitted questions then are added to your service queue in HubSpot and assigned to the CSM or support manager, which is then notified so they can promptly answer any concerns. Best practices here would be as you see common questions being submitted, you add them to your knowledge base, or if you don't have one, you could create email templates or snippets with the quick responses so your CSM or support managers can quickly respond with these pre-filled answers, which reduces the time to resolution, which we spoke about earlier in mistake number 3. If you want to take your customer support even further, HubSpot just released a new capability. Let me show you how it works. At HubSpot Inbound, they announced 4 new AI agents to assist you with your marketing, sales, and customer support. One of those agents being the customer agent. This agent is going to change the CSM role entirely. And what's great about it is that you feed this chat flow with your knowledge base content, your website blog, and any other imported URLs. And it uses AI to analyze everything you've created to build out an answer bot you can add to your platform that serves up the correct answers live based on your actual content. Turning this on means you only need to worry about building out a great knowledge base and leave the chat AI to all the quick responses, which means your CSMs and support teams aren't being pulled into common situations, but instead the more complicated issues that create real wins for your customers versus your teams always being bogged down with low priority issues. So now we've gone through the mistakes, we talked through the tabs of creation and even best practices for the 4 main chat flows. Now it's time for bonus. Let's chat about the actual chat inbox and 3 overlooked ways of creating a better chat engagement once people hit reply. Now that you've built out the chat flows, jumping into the inbox and responding to live chats, there are a few tips here that can make your life easier. First and foremost, HubSpot just recently introduced Copilot to chat, which allows you to use AI to write your chat engagements, which could help you speed up things if your website has a lot of volume. The insert dropdown is one thing I see a lot of brands overlook, but when used, drastically reduces your response resolution times. How I use this is letting chat managers run the chat interface kind of like the Wild West, and then after a month or so, I analyze the chats and look for patterns. You can then use HubSpot snippets to create many playbooks that if certain questions are asked, a chat manager just needs to apply a snippet and the question is answered. This could also include appending assets if people are asking, can I have access to a particular file or webinar replay a lot? You can also supply your chat managers with meeting booker links specific for them so you can measure how many meetings are coming from chat. A great way for chat managers to share value is uploading popular assets to HubSpot so they can share them directly in the chat versus pointing potential buyers to landing pages. I'd just train your chat managers on how to tag the CRM with a certain contact viewing a particular asset so that you can still show those downloads in your reports. Another unused function is the comments, but this is great if chat managers pick up on something specific or a personality trait they want to share in the CRM outside the contact fields already available, and these comments will show up in the activity feed on the contact view. Lastly, as you can see in the screenshot, the live chat is a dropdown. This allows you to quickly jump back and forth from talking to someone in chat versus sending them a quick email response or easily jumping on a phone call right from the inbox, which makes switching communication styles really simple, or maybe even a follow-up if a chat manager promised sending something they want to respond with an email. So this concludes the webinar. So let's recap everything we learned. First, we spoke about the top 4 mistakes people make when building chat flows that cause low engagement on the website. We then worked through on how to create the 4 most common chat flows, including live chat, a qualifying bot, meeting bot, and a customer support ticket bot. We discussed what was just launched at HubSpot Inbound with the new customer agent. And lastly, had a bonus round of tips and tricks for faster response rates once someone replies to a chat flow on the website. I guess the only question left is, did you learn anything and are you inspired to build out better chat flows? Leave a "I'm already building" in the comments if so. So that concludes the video, how to personalize HubSpot chat flows. If you have any questions, I'm live on the call and willing to address any questions you may have. And if you want to work with us at Contineofy, you can reach out to us at nextsteps@contineofy.com or visit the website and book your strategy session. So does anyone have any questions?